It's the Political Free Agents podcast, and we're back on the Sunday episode. What's going on, everybody? So, kind of always feel a little weird jumping into the Sunday episode because, hey, I sleep late. so, so it's like I sleep late, drag myself out of bed, crack my neck, kind of come sit down and get rolling. Um, Today is a cool day though because shortly we're about to go out and celebrate 15 years in business, specifically for my current company. That's why I have on the official Catapult Media shirt, and it's just been a wild ride, man. I mean, 15 years. There was about an 8 year span. Well, not about. It was almost exactly an 8 year span where I was a W-2 employee for two separate companies. But I kept the company around. And, I mean, I always tell people come and they want some work. They're basically throwing money. I can do it on the side, nights, weekends. I mean, why not? So I kept it around. But yeah, man, October 2005 is when I started Catapult. And it's been pretty fun, man. It's been pretty fun. We've done a lot of really big things, some really cool projects, and just looking forward to, I don't know, another 15, I guess. But we're gonna go out and celebrate at Top Golf. So looking forward to that. Top Golf is usually a pretty fun time. So um, me and one of my guys, we're gonna go out with the families and enjoy our day. So really looking forward to that. It's been an interesting news cycle this week though, and so we're gonna dig into some of those things. As the title suggests, we're gonna dig into the Platinum Plan, which is supposed to be the plan for Black America, which was kind of based on some of what Ice Cube did with the contract with Black America, so the CWBA. Always have to think about the acronym. That one is, we kind of touched on it last week with a lot of the flack that Cube was getting. So we're going to dig into a little bit more of what the Platinum Plan was because we just haven't addressed it at all. But to start off with, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but there was an actual teacher beheaded in France. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not, I'm not, uh, I'm not making, light of this or trying not to put as much on it as is needed. But yeah, it was actually beheaded in France. Like, wild stuff. So basically, the teacher, um, this is from what I understand, sitting here on NBC News. It's the article. Samuel, I guess Patty, maybe Patty, Paty, who discussed the Charlie Hebdo caricatures in class, was beheaded on Friday by an 18-year-old Chechen refugee who was shot dead by the police. Absolutely crazy story. Right. So I'm going to read part of the article here. Demonstrators in France on Sunday took part in gatherings in support of freedom of speech and in tribute to a history teacher who was beheaded near Paris after discussing caricatures of Islam's prophet Muhammad with his class. Samuel Paty was beheaded on Friday by an 18-year-old Moscow-born Chechen refugee who was shot dead by the police. Political leaders, associations, and unions demonstrated Sunday. Let's skip over this. They were, saying, "I am Samuel, I am Charlie." Actually, you know what? Let me go into this other article real quick, actually, because they're talking basically on this one what actually happened today. And so I actually pulled up the wrong one here. All right, so here we go. So this one is still on NBC. It's decapitated French teacher warned not to show Prophet Muhammad images before his quote unquote Islamist attack. We said to the teacher it is not good to show photos like this and that it will cause a huge problem. This was one of the students talking to NBC News. All right, so it says a student said he warned his teacher about showing caricatures of Prophet Muhammad, considered blasphemous by Muslims, days before he was decapitated on a Paris street in what French President Macron called an Islamist terrorist attack. So this was one of the students, and he said, I didn't, well, it's Marshall, Martial, I'm assuming a young man. I said, I didn't expect a decapitation. It went too far. And the teacher was a 47-year-old teacher. Said Ricard told reporters on Saturday that the attacker, who identified as Abdullah, I'm not even going to try that one. Abudovich, yeah, Abdullah, Abdullah. I'm tearing names up today. What is it? Maybe I should practice these like they do in the NFL before they get out here and have to say a long name. Uh, but anyway, he said he was Abdullah was an 18-year-old Chechen refugee. He said he had been armed with a knife and an airsoft gun that fired plastic pellets. He was shot dead by the police shortly after the incident. He was born in Moscow. The teenager had been granted a 10-year residency in France and was not known to intelligence services. He said a text claiming responsibility for the attack and a photograph of the victim were found on the phone. Said, adding that the suspect had been seen at the school asking students about the teacher, and the headmaster had also received several threatening calls. Right. So this was, I mean, this is like tragic as tragic gets, they kind of understand the way I'm about to say this. I'm not meaning this in terms of placing blame in any sort of way, but the teacher was warned that this was not a good thing to do, that it would be seen as disrespectful, and the teacher chose to do it anyway. In doing so, there was an extremist sitting out there that decided, I'm gonna do something about this. So in the line of thinking of what that kind of means here in America, because you think, we don't really see beheadings here. Like, that's not really right. But we have our own sort of violence, right? Because, the idea that you can't have guns means you grab something else. And so knife attacks, things like that over there are more common than they are here, because here you got guns. So even though we don't have, beheadings, we do have mass shootings and things like that. So along the lines of discussing, presenting material that may be inflammatory, things like that, I mean, beheading, it's way too far. Death of any sort, like killing a teacher over something like that, is way too far. This is like what comes after cancel culture becomes radicalized, right? Like, the whole idea of being able to cancel somebody, I don't think you can do it anyway. But at the minute there becomes like some people who want to radicalize this and are like, well, we can't cancel you because, I mean, look at everybody that they've said they were going to cancel. Everybody's back in some way, shape, or form, right? I remember the teacher or the professor in Portland. What's his name? He started the Unity 2020. Brett Weinstein. He was canceled in the sense that he lost his job, but you can't really like get rid of people. And I would probably say he's probably making way more money now than he was before as a professor, specifically and strictly because he's been on a bunch of, like talk shows, debates, public, events sort of things. Like, now granted, it's his life's work. He was a professor. That was his, so I'm pretty sure he could probably find a job somewhere, but he probably done with academia based on just kind of the things that I've seen him discuss in a multitude of YouTube videos. Um, so it's like you can get somebody to potentially lose their job or something like that, but you can't stop them from operating. All right, like what are you going to do? Like you're going to stop him from putting out his own YouTube channel? Okay, so he goes to Vimeo, or okay, so he does his own site, or like there's all these other avenues that you really can't cancel somebody in that sense unless you get radicalized, right? And so that's what it seems like here, is that it ended up being somebody that wasn't about the internet talk and we're going to get this guy fired. He took that personally and decided to go to the far extreme and completely behead him. So what does this do to education there after this, right? It's an interesting thing, because I mean, imagine you're a teacher who maybe had something like this on the plans um, for your students, and you know you're like, no, right? Or not even saying like the same thing with images of Muhammad or anything. I just mean like something that students may warn you, like, hey man, this is disrespect, you maybe not want to do that. uh like how far does that go? I mean, it's just human nature to be a little concerned now. Like you have something that is going to make you rethink what you present to your students, right? So the idea of, I think in a school setting, there's obviously some things, and it's all about how the teacher was presenting it, right? So I think there should be open discussion of a lot of things, whether it's incendiary or not. I think students should be able to teach those things. I mean, discuss those things. I think that's part of critical thinking, to try to get people, to actually break the mold that they've kind of been sitting in for a while. And so when I look at a story like this, and these were teenagers, so high school age, um, those are the times where you want to start having these discussions. I don't know what the images are. I don't know if what the teacher's motives were for still showing those images. Um, I'm not sure. I do also believe that there are certain things that you probably should just be respectful in. And this is in no way saying that the teacher deserved what he received, but just in the sense of, why did he actually share or present those images? So there's all these different avenues to think about and discuss. Just the one thing that is outright clear: he didn't deserve that. Like that wasn't the thing that should have been the ending of the story there. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, you know. So, all right, the election. We're what? It's the 18th, so we're a couple weeks away from knowing who's going to potentially take office. And I say potentially because of all the mail-in voting and all of those things that are coming about. And so we had a town hall that happened, or two town halls actually. I don't know why they did this. I have a theory that I'll present, but you tell me what. Why did they put two town halls um, right by each other at the same time slot? on competing networks. My guess is Trump wanted to prove that he had the ratings. That's just my guess. I can't tell you for sure. I don't know. Um, there's a bunch of different things where Biden could have chosen different time as well. So I don't know. I don't think Trump can snap his finger and say, put us against each other. But you never know. You never know. He has influence. So the funny thing is Trump was telecast on 3 different networks. I don't remember all 3, but he was on 3 different ones. Biden was on one, and Biden beat him in ratings. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah. That had to sting a little bit. It was interesting because just when I heard, like, just off the top of my head, when I heard that they were at the same exact time, my first thought was, oh, Trump's about to be boasting about his ratings. And when I heard the numbers, actually, I saw Harris Faulkner actually posted them. I was like, oh, snap. And then I saw that there were 3 networks that Trump was on, and Biden was on one. I was like, okay, dang. So anyway, the content of the town halls, I didn't watch them. I mean, at this point, we kind of know who they are, right? We know who Biden is. We know who Trump is. Like, how many of you really, truly have not made up your mind on voting? Like, truly. I mean, like, if you have decided to vote, right? And you're like, I'm voting in this election. I'm not saying those of you who have said, I'm not voting. I'm saying those of you who said, I'm going to vote. How many of you really, truly have not decided, yes, this is who I'm voting for? I would be really interested. Hit us on social media. Let us know. I'd be really interested in knowing. Um, I think there definitely would be some undecideds, but I'm not really sure if, like let's say you're a Trump supporter. He's been, like, you're looking at the way he's handling COVID and the way he's been acting lately and these sort of things, and you're like, I'm not really liking the way he's been doing or operating as of late. Are you really going to vote for Biden? Like, we're hearing a bunch of stories about, Republicans, lifelong Republicans who are, voting for Biden for the first time, or let's just say voting the Democratic ticket. Um, or maybe let's just say not hearing a bunch of stories. I'm hearing some anecdotes of this happening, but I'm also hearing anecdotes of lifelong Democrats voting Republican, right? And so, but it feels like, of all the people who tuned in, and the numbers for the ratings, I was looking for them while I was yammering, was Biden was 14.3 million, and Trump was 13.5 million. And Trump was simulcast across NBC and NBCU cable channels, MSNBC and CNBC. So basically 3 different access points. And so, you know, that was basically the difference. The margin of victory, they said 800,000. Well, yeah, just do the math. So, it's interesting. But how many people watched that and were like, you know what? I need to leave Trump and go with Biden. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I just don't think there's a ton of those people. I think if you were already planning to vote, you knew who you were voting for. Anybody that was on the edge was just kind of sitting there waiting to see, you know, how is this one thing going to work out, right? Because most people are one issue voters, right? There's one thing. If you work in the oil field, you're probably going to be voting Republican. Let's just be real. The idea of messing up, the whole fracking industry, that may not be something that you desire, right? Like there's all these avenues that are happening right now. How do you handle COVID? What about the economy? What about jobs overall? How is this? Trump's temperament, all of these things, they go out of the way when it comes to your paycheck. Right. So those things don't matter as much. All the other things don't matter as much as you personally being able to survive or your family being able to survive. So the understanding there is that you're going to vote for your own self-interest. And that's pretty much everybody, right? Most people are going to vote for their own self-interest. So the people who are truly undecided, I think at least after the first debate, probably figured out what they wanted to do, right? If you're going with Trump, you're just, no matter what the dude does, you're going with Trump, right? Like there's nothing he can do at this point. I mean, we've seen him do the worst and say some of the worst things that any president, in modern time, or let me say, at least say in televised recorded history, has said and done, and he still has your support. So there's really nothing that I see that Biden can do or say that would really make you be like, oh, you know what? I want to see Biden's America, right? And obviously, there's not many that are going to be out here that are going to be like, yeah, I want to see Trump's America. Speaking from those that are um, already voters of Biden, basically. So I don't think Trump is really pulling anybody over to his side. Um, that's based on who he is, let's say. I think the things in America right now, because of the way the narratives have been pushed. That's why Trump has been trying to paint Biden as one of the radicals, one of the people who's like behind, kind of quote unquote, for these riots. He's been trying to push that narrative that if you let Biden into office, what you see in Portland and in other places is what America as a whole is going to look like. Like he's been trying to push that specifically, that idea of fear mongering against uh, the left. Basically, he's been trying to push that against Biden, and that's why the questions in the first debate were like that, because he wanted to equate Biden with riots. And so I could see those people who feel that those events tied to Biden, um, you know, push them in a different direction and decide, I don't want to see this for America. This is the crazy leftists out here doing it. Only the leftists, none of the people on the right are doing it. None of the Proud Boys are out here paintballing people and all. None of that stuff is happening. No black clad people are out here, doing any kind of dirt. Antifa is now somehow Democratic. I don't, somehow they're Democrats. I don't mean, okay. All right. uh you know like the simplicity of the idea that Antifa is a leftist quote unquote organization, like if you buy those narratives, then yeah, I could see you deciding that you want to vote uh away from the Democrats in that way. um but you know the number of people who have registered to vote is already breaking numbers. The number of people who have already voted in multiple states is breaking numbers. And I think it was, oh shoot, I'm gonna mess around and butcher it. So, but look this up. I didn't have it handy because it's just something I was thinking about. Chris and I were talking about it. And essentially, I think it was Florida, that the number of voters that had already voted was on day one was like 20. No, I think it was Georgia, was 20% of the entirety of 2016's election. The first day was 20% of 2016. That's massive. Like the turnout right now is either the MAGA crowd is going bananas and is like, we got to keep our guy in, he's in an existential fight, or the non-MAGA folks are out here like, we got to get this dude out. We don't know which one it is yet. Either it's going to be a landslide one way or another, or it's just the news just kind of propping us up and telling us that this is something to get us amped up. So I tend to look at the data to see, but obviously the one key piece of data is you don't know who voted for whom. That's the only thing. We do know in Florida, the current outlook for the early voting has it almost all blue, some purple, and obviously some solidly red spots as well. But Florida is one of those things that when you start looking at the makeup of the counties, and this is why, all of the ideas of uh, gerrymandering. I was thinking redistricting and all sorts of stuff. Gerrymandering is there specifically because they want to carve out these spots, right? They want to say this county has, like, random stats here, like, but they do it for all the different races and creeds and stuff. But they'll say this county, this specific area, part of the county, and this other part of this other county, they have, an average of 55-year-old white males with, kids in college, and, they break down by income and all these sort of things. And they say, we want to draw a map that looks like Squidward. And, this is the map for district number 5. And they do that because they know most likely that district is going to vote, or that specific area is going to vote red or blue, right? Because both sides play this game, right? Like once the rules are set and one side starts doing something, the other side will. And so they fashion these areas like this specifically so that they can maximize votes, right? They'll look and say, well, this is an impoverished area, mostly minority, they're going to vote Democrat. So I want to draw a SpongeBob right here. I don't know why I'm picking all these characters, but I want to draw SpongeBob right here. And this is going to be the area because we know that we can get this area to be blue, right? This is why they kind of do those things. So it's always interesting when you see uh, when you see these maps of counties and who voted for uh, basically which party, and they show the colors. uh, you have to pay attention to the density of that area, right? Because I remember after 2016 they started sharing a map that had all this red on it. It was like, yeah, man, those are mountains. Like nobody nobody right there voted for anybody. Those are mountains, and so it's like you got to look at the density of these areas and who voted where and why and all this sort of thing. But right now, it's looking like the early voting has been in the favor of Biden, but we'll see. You honestly really, really never know with these things. All right, so last week we kind of touched on it a little bit, and been having these discussions. I actually was having one earlier um, with Mike, but the idea of these Hunter Biden emails being proof, um, that uh, Joe Biden is corrupt. It's just a very, very interesting thing to watch. Uh, Go out, read the information for yourself, right? Like read the emails, digest multiple sources, and just eh, come up with the conclusion that you feel is accurate for you. Uh, but don't avoid addressing uh, what these things really mean, right? And what I mean by that is the idea of grasping at certain straws. And so I find it funny because this is the way I characterized it to someone on Facebook, is this isn't something with a lot of smoke. right? Where you say, oh, there's some smoke, there must be a fire there, right? Like we need to check this out. So, oh, there's some smoke, there's something went wrong. This is like having like some matches and some paper nearby each other and some wood, right? Like it's like all these pieces are here, but it's not tied together yet. And I'm completely open, completely open to the idea that these emails are accurate, right? Like Hunter Biden's emails, uh, they're basically are essentially three different things that they're stating. One, they're trying to paint Joe Biden as a liar because Joe Biden said, what was his quote? I never talked to my son about his international, affairs or business or anything like that, because Hunter was, quick backstory, Hunter was on the board of Burisma, and Joe Biden was in charge of Ukraine, China, and something else, one other country, and when he was vice president. And so Joe is saying that I've never had the conversations with my son about his business. One of Hunter's emails say that, thank you for introducing me to your dad. It was great meeting him, blah, 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 right? So people were saying, oh, Joe Biden's a liar. He did talk to his son about his business. I mean, you can make leaps, right? Like you can assume that those things happen. Maybe they did, but you're making a huge leap, right? Like you're making the leap that this is what happened irrefutably. Yes, this is the thing that happened, based on that one email. And that's just not enough, right? Like you're gonna need something more. Like you don't know if, and I forget the guy's name, but you don't know if he sat down and had a 3-hour lunch and a glass of cognac after. You don't know if that's what happened, or if Joe saw Hunter, briefly, and they crossed paths, and Joe said, hey, how you doing? Hugged the guy, smelled his hair, and walked off. You don't know. Like you just don't know. You don't know. So that in and of itself is not enough for you to say, oh, Joe Biden is a liar. But it's also something that should be looked at, right? Like you should look at it. I'm fine. Dig into it. I said throughout the entire impeachment thing, the whole idea that Trump did this for the country, which we know that's a lie, uh, and that Joe Biden was corrupt. I said the whole time, look into it, right? Like I'm fine, do that, right? Like everybody should be fine, do that. Hold them accountable. I don't care who it is. Hold them accountable. Do it. But let's not just, you know, start taking those little pieces and saying, oh, that's a fact. And so this is the rich part of it to me, is because this is the Trumpers who, throughout all of the impeachment, you had the transcript, you had Rudy, right? You had the people from the Ukraine, like you had all these people who stated, like unequivocally, that Trump was trying to get a political favor against an opponent, and you went to the ends of the earth to say he didn't. Now, you could have argued that it wasn't impeachable, right? That's something that you could have argued all day till you're blue in the face, right? I have no problem with that. But at the time, what all of you were saying was he didn't do that for political reasons. He wasn't trying to investigate Joe, and you had everything in front of you. And now you get an email say, hey, thank you for introducing me to your dad. And it's, oh my God, Joe Biden is the most corrupt politician in the history of politicians, which is what Trump actually stated, I believe, today. So, it's kind of funny to see. And at this point, I really do hope that Biden wins, because the hypocrites are going to come out strong. all the stuff that they said Trump shouldn't be impeached for, like one Trumper told me outright that what they have with these emails is impeachable. And I'm like, so you're impeaching Joe Biden before he even wins? Like, that's what we're doing? We're impeaching Biden, not just for something that happened, I don't know what, 6 years ago, something like that, 8 years ago, however long. You want to impeach him over something 8 years ago, 6 to 8 years ago, and he's not even president yet. Like this is why I say political free agents is the only way to go. Like there's no other way, because once you become a team player, you got to see a team win. And all the hypocrites who were out here talking about Trump shouldn't be impeached over all of this and are now talking about Biden has done something impeachable is just like peak, peak, peak content for political free agents to call out, because it's just hilarious to me how you can make so many leaps uh, and really just, at this point do a complete 180 and just be like, yeah, I don't care if I said that wasn't impeachable back then. I think this thing now is impeachable. Like, I just want to see 4 years of Biden and these Trumpers out here just showing a tail. So anyway, all right. So there's still, and I mentioned it last week, but the FBI is looking, well, they've been asked to dig in more to clarify about the material on Hunter Biden's laptop. Like I said last week, I'm of the mind that it's real. It's his, content. Um, where it comes from absolutely does matter, because just this simple idea of the like it's not necessarily chain of custody in this case, but in that mindset of chain of custody, excuse me, where it comes, woo, I just sounded like Trump again. Where it comes from matters, because it could be doctored, it could be planted, like all of these things, right? All of those things could be happening or could have happened. And the FBI warned Rudy previously last year that this guy was, I believe, a known Russian agent or something. Speaking of the computer shop owner or worker or whoever he is. So they're kind of trying to dig more into that, and they're being asked to dig into it. But it definitely matters where it comes from. But if, like I said last week, it seems like they are legit emails. Uh, if what the content in them is legit, then dig, right? Dig into this, like lean into it. And people are mad because it's not the number one news story covering everything, and it's all spread over, and it's the biggest story. Well, think about it. Fox News, this is right up their alley. And even Fox News is being hesitant, right? Brett Baer was talking to Kennedy, and, they were like, Brett Baer basically was like, we're trying to, establish, the trail here. We're trying to validate this material, right? Like he's leading into questioning Kennedy about it. And Kennedy said something like it's more serious than 4 strokes and a heart attack or something like that, or 4 heart attacks and a stroke, or one way or the other. And, went in to lean into how big of a deal this was and that sort of thing. And, but Brett prefaced it with, we're trying to validate this stuff, trying to validate this information, right? And like you have to consider at some point. Now, I'm not saying you believe everything the media's saying, but when the left media and the right media agree that we need to dig into this a little more, you might be able to lean on that a little bit, as maybe we should hold out our judgment and get some more details. But we'll be finding out, I'm sure. Like it's going to be coming in uh, very soon, uh, because we're weeks away from the election. You're going to hear this played up a lot, right? They're going to dig into this as much as they can because they're trying to hit Joe by way of Hunter, which I could care less how vile Hunter is. It doesn't matter, right? I could care less if Hunter was overpaid for his job. It doesn't matter, right? Like they're sharing pictures of Joe Biden's house that's not his house, right? Like they're trying to find anything to hit Joe, and this is politics. This is what they do. The attack ads right now are on full tilt. You watch anything and it's like, hi, I'm Wesley Hunt. I believe this, blah, blah, blah. And then the next commercial is Wesley Hunt. Like they always do the ominous music in the background. It's like Wesley Hunt. He believes in, whatever. Like they'll throw something crazy. And it's just like, wow. So there's the local politicians' names here, but the one with Sri Kulkarni is hilarious, who was one of the first guests in Political Free Agents. But Sri Kulkarni comes out and is like, I believe in this and I want to see this. And then it's Sri Kulkarni, too progressive for Texas. And like the next ad is hilarious. Anyway, you're going to see a lot more about this. But the funny thing is that you're seeing folks like Dan Bongino and those kind of folks mad because people are looking at investigating uh, Hunter Biden's laptop. Like, this is what you should do, right? Like you should want them to look into it, like dig into it. Do you want public opinion to decide that he should be impeached already? Dig into it, so there's a bunch of photos, videos, all that sort of stuff that they're looking into about child porn or whatever. Man, look, if Hunter Biden is vile and goes to jail for some crimes that he did, so be it, right? I only care if Joe Biden, if there is a proof, a literal trail showing that Joe Biden sold access to America. That's the only thing I really care about in this whole narrative. And right now, all we have is along those lines is one email that says, um, like, what was it, 20 million for the big guy, and they're saying the big guy is Joe. That was like a rate for setting up, or maybe it was 20,000. I don't know, but that was a rate for setting up a meeting in some email with Hunter, with no clarification who the big guy was. So we'll see. Basically, the jury's still out. We'll find out. We'll find out soon what it is. But you can guarantee if Joe wins, you're going to have 4 years of Trumpers never letting go of 2020, like they say the left never let go of 2016. You can guarantee. And I just hope we get to see it. I just hope we get to see it. All right. So the Platinum Plan. For the last segment here, let's dig into this Platinum Plan. So we talked a little bit last week about Ice Cube and the Platinum Plan and the CWBA and all those sort of things. We didn't dig into the specifics of the Platinum Plan, but I heard I mentioned also about Killer Mike, who had talked about the Platinum Plan and these sort of things. But it's interesting to see the Platinum Plan being discussed in this way of being some form of some sort of amazing plan that's going to fix all that's wrong with Black America. In relates to not like cultural things, like as it relates to what's going on with access to funding and basically how lopsided things are with the economy and the economic outlook of Black America. Black America is more impoverished than any other quote unquote race in the country. So those things are, and I'm trying to find one picture here that kind of sums it up. But those things are kind of interesting to see, um, how people kind of interpret this situation, right? Like the idea that I have the plan on how to fix Black America, you know, like let's just take the idea of handouts and the promises that the right says the left always does to placate Black America. And then um, let's look at actually what this platinum plan is, right? So this is what I said, like when people say the left is always dangling something for Black America around the election, man, I said it at the time, the right does it all the time too. The right always dangles something too. It's always there. They're always trying to placate to some sort of base to try to get them to do something, right? The whole Make America Great Again, it was about giving segments of America that red meat that they wanted: immigration, law and order, all these sort of things. These are just talking points, right? The same thing is happening with this platinum plan, right? So, all right, let's look into the detail. What is the platinum plan? So this is, you can find it on Trump's website. Just Google, the Trump platinum plan. So there are 4 tenets, and I'm going to read these 4 completely. All right. So the first one, these are the 4 pillars. They call them: opportunity, by achieving historic employment levels for Black Americans, as well as increasing access to capital for new businesses. President Trump has committed to ensuring all Black Americans can achieve the American dream. Okay. Security, by signing into law the celebrated First Step Act, President Trump has brought common sense criminal justice reform to the American people for the first time in decades, while ensuring that our streets and communities are safe for families and business owners. All right. Prosperity, as the first president to provide long-term funding to historical Black colleges and universities, the administration continues to seek immediate and generational advancement for Black Americans. All right. Fairness, as demonstrated through his actions to initiate investment into opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reforms. President Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for the Black community. All right. So these 4: opportunity, historic, achieving historic employment levels for Black America. Okay. I have said this for 4 years and no one has been able to answer me. What did he do for Black America? How did he lower Black unemployment? Because you can look at the data, you can Google, just look it up, or use DuckDuckGo, whatever you want to use. Search engine it. Unemployment rates by rate, unemployment by race by year. Just Google that. Or search engine that if you don't like Google, and just look at it. You can see the chart, you can see the data. Unemployment was trickling down, and it has been trickling down since 2010, I believe, because 2009, Obama takes over, huge recession is hitting within the first few months, and then 2010 is when you kind of started seeing the economy quote unquote tick up, and unemployment was going down, right? So when Trump takes office, unemployment is still at the exact same trajectory. So again, you didn't you didn't wreck the car so great, right? But what did you do specifically for Black America? And the answer is nothing. No one can answer it. I've asked Trump supporters, not, and you may be thinking you know, if you're on the left, like I'm talking to like fringe Trump. No, I'm talking to intelligent Trump supporters who can present ideas in an effective way, and they cannot give you anything beyond cut regulations, right? Like that's the only thing that they can really give you. And then tax cuts. Tax cuts were for businesses, right? They weren't for the people. The little 2% that, you know, took it from 38 to 36, you know, that didn't like improve unemployment sort of thing. And so you think, all right, so tax cuts, well, um, maybe that helped get some more people employed. Then again, you go look at the data. And again, specifically, tax cuts weren't just for Black America. That was something that he did overall. You go look at the data, and the unemployment numbers didn't start trickling down and then shoot down. It just kept going down back to the levels that we went to roughly before the '09 recession, right? Got down to basically, I think he took over and it was about 6%, 6.5%, and it came down 5, and then I think 4.5% or something like that, whatever it was, right? So he basically was on board when it went down 2% roughly, or 3, whatever it would be. You know, so the idea that his first pillar is giving opportunity is like, you've done nothing for 4 years specifically to help the Black community. So I'm not going to hold out hope that you're going to do something in the next 4 years because you put it in a nicely designed PDF. And the PDF does look nice. Great design by whoever did it. All right, security. By signing into law the celebrated First Step Act. All right. So some backstory, if you don't know, the First Step Act was actually something that started and was attempted to be put into law in 2015. It was first introduced as the Reform and Corrections Act. And this was not passed specifically because why? Oh, I'm sorry, Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act, SRCA. It was introduced by Chuck Grassley and Dick Durbin, and they tried to do this in 2015. But just take a guess why they wouldn't let this happen. Just take one wild guess. Yeah, you probably got it. I'm just gonna assume you answered Obama, because that's what it was 100% about. The First Step Act was not something that Trump even campaigned on. He didn't talk about it. He said nothing about it. What happened was, in the background, the First Step Act was worked on since, well, you can assume it was happening either prior to being presented or, you know, thereafter, you know, 2014, 2015 time, sort of time it was being worked on. And they were trying to get this thing through. They presented in 2015, and the Republicans say, nope, not doing it. So they continue pushing, they continue working. And I'm sure between 2015 and I think it was 2018 when it was signed, I'm pretty sure there were some changes, some tweaks or whatever. But what happens when it comes up then? Yes, let's sign it. Why? Because the Republicans were in power and they weren't going to let Obama get a win. That's just the facts of it, right? It was placed on Trump's desk. Trump signed it. And now people are like touting it as Trump signed the First Step Act. And it's just amazing. Like, no, whatever. Kick rocks on that. Like, let's just be real. This was something that was just an opportunity. That was it. They had to convince Trump to sign it. He saw the political opportunity and he signed it, and they're trying to capitalize on it. Do I expect to see him do anything to help with this? Beyond this, no, because this is the same guy who decided to push a 10 years, a 10-year penalty, jail time for vandalism of a statue. Right. A statue. Cop can kill somebody, and no, let's not push in some legislation to address that. Let's not address that aspect. And I'm speaking of the wrongful deaths. I'm not talking about a cop killing somebody that is, a good shoot, quote unquote, as they say, right? Let's not deal with that. Let's not address qualified immunity. Let's not address any of these issues that you're hearing and being told impact the Black community. Let's not address any of that. Let's address destroying statues. And who are the statues? Mostly the conservative, or excuse me, the Confederate statues, right? So don't try to pee on me with this whole, First Step Act and tell me it's raining, because that's not who Trump is. Trump is not out here. This is the same guy who, with the Central Park Five, took out a whole page ad about bringing back the death penalty. That's who this guy is. This guy is not a criminal justice reform guy. And you can't make me believe he is in any other way, shape, or form. This was the Republicans owning the Democrats in 2015, and the culmination of it happening in 2018. That's what this was, right? So security, nah. Prosperity. He funded the historical Black colleges and universities. Now, they say he's the first president to provide long-term funding. He's not the first president to provide funding. The specific term there is long-term funding. That's a great thing. I'm all behind that. Great pillar. Fairness. And this is where he talked about funding opportunity zones, address health disparities, wealth gaps, and address educational reforms, right? Again, this is like talking out of two sides of your mouth, right? So you want to address wage gaps and necessary education reforms and health disparities, right? But part of the health disparities, he says he wants to keep pre-existing conditions but get rid of the Affordable Care Act. But you don't have a plan to replace it. Like, how are you going to do that? What specifically are you going to do to help in these areas, right? We don't have enough time to go through it, but the health disparities, it's more about not being able to, so we talked about a story. Let me actually sidebar that. We talked about a story recently here in downtown. Well, I guess downtown will be that way. Here in downtown Houston, we have the medical center, right? Or it's really just outside of downtown. You go a few blocks over, and medical center, mind you, is a world-renowned medical center. You go a few blocks over, and you cannot, those people there in that specific area, which they were talking about was Sunnyside, those people in Sunnyside are not able to go to the medical center. 2 blocks, maybe 3 away from the medical center is an area where a large population of that area cannot visit the best medical center in the country. Right. So it's one thing to be able to say we're going to address health disparities, but I need to see more. Yeah, and then the Republicans have not shown me since they started trying to repeal Obamacare, which I think they're up to like 45 times they've tried now, or more. They tried and tried, and then they finally get all 3. They get the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they can't do it because they don't have a plan. So I hold out no hope on that one, but I'm very much so welcoming to the idea of addressing it. And this was one of the things that Cube said. I don't care who is in office. We need to make progress. And I'm 100% behind that statement. We have to make progress. And this isn't just about Black people, right? The idea that impoverished Black people are any way different than impoverished white people. No, they have different issues and different cultural relevancy, in terms of, the specifics of why they're impoverished in certain areas and how they deal with it and how they live. Like, they're different in those ways, but they're the same right? They're still dealing with things where they can't get to the hospital, or they're so poor they can't get good food because all they can do is get the cheaper stuff, which is not the best option, which then leads to more health issues, right? Like there's all these facets of these sort of things, right? So anyway, running up on time here, but uh, apologies for my loud chair here. Too cheap to get a new one. Uh, so so the platinum plan goes on and it discusses the things that he wants to do. And they want to increase capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. They want to create 3 million new jobs for the Black community, 500,000 new Black owned businesses, access to 500 billion in capital, safe urban neighborhoods with highest policing standards. Yeah, we just gonna let that one sit right there. Commit to working on a second step act. We'll see what that one is. Access to better education and job opportunities. This is most likely going the way because they keep pushing this whole idea of the voucher program. And what do you think is going to happen with the voucher program? Like, we could do a whole segment on this, but what do you think is going to happen with the voucher program that says, hey, let's talk back about Sunnyside. You folk in Sunnyside who can't afford to go a few blocks and get medical care, you can now go to any school in Houston. How many people do you think are going to be able to take their kid from Sunnyside and travel over to Katy? Because Katy has, it's a richer area here in Houston. So how many do you think are going to be able to get there consistently on a regular basis? They're not going to take a bus from what is basically West Houston to southeast of downtown. They're not going to bus them in. They're not going to drive all over the city. So somehow or another, you're going to have to get your kid over there. You got a voucher. You can go anywhere. You can go to any school you want to go to. You got a voucher, but you can't, because why? Money's involved, right? Like that idea, I'm not really sure about that there. So they also give Black church, and we'll kind of wrap this up here, give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. I mean, like, why is that not even a thing anyway? Like, no matter who the church is, like, why is there some designation? Excuse me. And bring better and tailored health care to address historic disparities. Not holding out hope. Immigration policy that protects American jobs, nothing to do with Black people. Advance home ownership opportunities and enhance financial literacy in the Black community. I think that could be from way more than just the Black community, but I don't hold out hope that the government is going to now show us how the system works so that we can better provide, or better navigate the system. But the home ownership is key because there's, it's just history, but the Black community, even with like the 40 acres and a mule, and then, Black people owning land and owning houses, there were all these tax codes and all this stuff that stripped Black America from owning their land, owning their houses. And, one way to build wealth in this country is owning a home. So there is a historical issue with home ownership in the Black community that needs to be addressed for sure. Onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses. Again, not really Black-owned businesses there. So we don't have time to go through all of these things in greater detail because they do kind of break these down. So they start with the 4 pillars and they kind of give a few more details, and then they break down more pieces there. And so I spent a little too much time on the other things. I should have adjusted my time here. But the thing that I wanted to point out in these details is that they talk about this being the platinum plan, which, by the way, the whole idea of naming a plan for the Black community the platinum plan, that's about as placating as it gets, right? I should have addressed that from the jump. Platinum plan, what is, like, you trying to go hip hop with the platinum chains and stuff? Nah, man, go. you know, miss me with the name. But either way, uh, when you dig into these details, and I suggest you go look at it, it's basically page 3 of the PDF, I believe. Or no, I guess page 2. So the second page basically gives you like a breakdown, a bunch of bullet points and things like that. And as you read them, just read them and see when they say things like minority, not black, minority, right? So this is supposed to be the platinum plan for Black America, but you start seeing things like minority throughout this thing. And it's like, yeah, like make the Minority Business Development Agency permanent. Minority is basically just anybody who's not in the majority, which right now in the country, the majority single quote unquote race is white. So, I mean, that's anybody, right? You know, so uh and that's littered throughout this thing, right? It's littered throughout here, um to get like it says things that you think, oh, that sounds good, but then you really read it and it's like, it's, yeah, that's not really it, right? You know, and so they dig in, like I said, with the education part, and they talk about the tax credits and being able to go school choice and education. Again, you're not addressing how you're going to achieve that, right? Like you're not really digging into those sort of things. It's just not there. And then you got like prosperous Black communities would make Juneteenth a national holiday. Like, just go back to June and just listen to the rhetoric about Juneteenth, and just listen to it. Like, listen to the rhetoric around Trump, his administration, everything about Juneteenth, and you tell me if you really think that that's going to happen. And maybe it does, but it's really not going to move the needle. Black folk going to celebrate it or they not. It's mostly a Southern thing anyway. Prosecuting the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organization and make lynching a national hate crime. I mean, like, none of this needs to be in some platinum plan, right? Just do it, right? Like, just do it. Like, there's no need to like placate to us for votes. Just do it. Like, just say, like they actually came out and I think they said KKK and Antifa were a terrorist organization. I think the FBI classified them as terrorist organizations a few weeks back. All right. Like, what makes you think lynching is not a national hate crime? And then like, let's go beyond that. And what about prosecuting them? Like, how are you going to prosecute them? There's a young man in up here in one of the northern states who had a hanger put up his butt by football players, and he was I forgot what he had, but autism or something like that. Yeah, and they basically raped this dude with a clothes hanger. Nothing happened to him. This was just within the last year or so. Right. So like these things are happening, right? And like they can be addressed, but it's not like, this isn't like something for Black America. This is just something that America should do. I don't care who you are, what color, how much melanin you have. Shoot, me and Chris are about the same color. If you're watching on video, look at this picture. And if you just took the colors of all 3 of the hosts of the political free agents, we all dang near about the same color, right? Like the amount of melanin in your skin means nothing. If you're lynched, it should be no question. If the cop has a bad shoot and busts in your door and kills you, there should be no question, right? Like, that's the problem. Like, bullet points for days. Cool, got it, great. Put out a bullet point. You have a plan. All right, cool. I want to see some action. And don't give me action from the last administration that Republicans played the game and won, and they blocked, and now they actually allowed this First Step Act. Don't give me this. This is retreads of stuff that you're taking credit for. Show me something legit. And for 4 years, I haven't seen it. Just flat out, I haven't seen it. I'm not holding out hope for the next 4, no matter who comes into office. I'm not holding out hope. I'm doing whatever I can to help the community in the ways that I can. That's the same thing that Cube is saying that he's trying to do. But I'm not holding out any hope that this platinum plan is something that is going to be a focused agenda for this administration. And I also don't think whatever Biden's planning is going to be a focused agenda either. It may be a little bit more focused because you got Kamala there that may be pushing that, especially with the HBCUs, because she is an AKA and went to, I believe it was Howard. So we'll see. But again, it's the government. I'm not terribly trusting of the government and the things that they say they're going to do for us, because historically, they just haven't. Appreciate you listening for overtime. Went over about 10 minutes, 11 minutes now. So appreciate that. I got to get out of here. I'm late. I got to get to the celebration of Catapult Media's 15 years by playing a little bit of Top Golf. Let's see if this old back creaks as much as this old chair does. And let's see if I can ding some out there and have a little fun with the families here. So we're the Political Free Agents. We do this thing twice a week, Sundays. And I think this week we're going to be able to make the switch to Tuesdays. But you know what? We keep saying it. All I can tell you is go to YouTube, hit subscribe, hit like, and you'll find out when we go live. Just be there, 7 p.m. That's when we get going. We're actually starting to line up some more interviews. So we're hoping to get some people on. It's the end of an election cycle. So it's a little hot and heated for their campaigns right now. So it may be a little bit after the election that we get some of these politicians on, but I'm looking forward to that and able to have those discussions. But get out, vote, go save the democracy in whichever way you see that leaning. Catch us at politicalfreeagents.com and at PFA Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We are PFA, and we out. Peace.